Today, you guys are going to take a look at stem changing verbs. These are special verbs that don't follow your regular rules. When you conjugate it, you have to do something different to them. So remember that the verb is divided into two parts. You have your infinitive ending and you have the stem. When you conjugate normal verbs, regular present tense verbs, you take the infinitive off and then you add the correct ending to the stem to make the verb agree with the subject. So in essence, when you talk about stem changing verbs, you're talking about verbs whose stem undergo a spelling change when conjugated. These verbs are also called boot verbs, and you'll see that a little bit later why they're called boot verbs. And when you conjugate it, after you change the stem, you will put the regular present tense verb endings on the end. So for instance, if it's an AR verb, your endings are still going to be all, as, I, almost, ice, and on. Alright, you don't change the ending, the stem is what changes, and you still have to conjugate these verbs, okay? And the nosotros and vosotros forms do not stem change when you conjugate. So there are three main stem changing categories and then one that only has one verb. We have the O to UE, E to I, E to IE, U to UE, and the only verb in the U to UE category is jugar. So that should be easy for you to remember. Here are a list of your O to UE verbs. Some of these we've already seen before, like almorzar, dormir, encontrar, etc., etc. Now, do not take the time to copy all these verbs down because you have a handout with these verbs on it. And since I'm not there, I can't give you that extra time to copy the verb list because we need to move on. So refer to your list that was handed out to you to see which verbs do stem change O to UE. Here lists your E to I. We've already seen decir. We've seen pedir, seguir, repetir, so forth and so on. Again, do not try to copy these verbs. You should have them sitting in front of you. And the last category, E to IE. And words that we've seen before, cerrar, to close, empezar, perder, preferir, etc., etc. So how do we conjugate these verbs? As always, we take the infinitive ending off, and then we change the stem of all the verbs except for nosotros and vosotros, and then we add the appropriate present tense ending. So let's look at an example. We have dormir, which is an O to UE stem changing verb. I know this because it's on my list, not because it has an O in it, but because it's on my list of O to UE stem changers. So we change that O to UE in all the forms except nosotros and vosotros. Notice the red means stop. Don't change. Just change the ending. And you see our boot. We have what's in dark green in the shape of a boot. Then we have the two that's on the outside. So everything inside of the boot change. Everything that forms the boot change. Anything left outside the boot do not change. So we have yo duermo, tú duermes, él, ella, usted duerme, nosotros dormimos, vosotros dormís, ellos, ellas, ustedes duermen, okay? Nosotros, vosotros do not change. The other ones change O to UE, and it takes regular present tense endings for IR verbs. And let's look at an E to I example. We have pedir. Like I said, E to I except for all forms except nosotros and vosotros. Pido, pides, pide, pedimos, pedís, piden. Again, I did not change what's on the outside of my boot, the nosotros and vosotros. But all my other E's changed to I. And then I took and put my regular present tense endings on to my stem after I changed it. And then now we have an E to IE. Now if you notice, preferir has two E's. Now how do you know which E to change? You change the vowel closest to the ending when you stem change, okay? So that means if I have an O and an E and I can't decide which one stem change, more than likely I'm going to change that E because that E is what's going to be closer to that ending. So in this case, we're going to change that second E because that second E is closest to my IR, sorry. Again, prefiero, prefiere, prefieren, preferimos, preferís, prefieren. Again, boot changes, outside does not. Alright, let's look at these sentences. Take a minute or so to copy them down in your notes, and then I'm going to give you the answers. Let's see how many you can get right before the answers come to you. Remember, you must stem change the endings, regular present tense endings. You have to conjugate these verbs just like you have to conjugate the verbs that we worked on last week. And a little side note, a mistake on the PowerPoint, there should be an accent mark over the U and through in number 5. Alright, so let's look at the answers. Mis amigos almuerzan, los estudiantes encuentran la respuesta correcta. En el restaurante nosotros pedimos una tortilla. No, pedimos not stem change. La maestra repite las palabras para los estudiantes. Okay, second E, because it's closest to the infinitive. And then tú prefieres la limonada en vez del refresco. You guys are going to watch a brief video presented to you by Standard Deviants, the same videos we normally watch after we go over a topic. You're going to complete the handouts for the video. You're going to do some practice conjugations and some boots. Make sure before you leave today that you turn in all of your work, including your notes. Now your notes should have your Q column and it should have your summary complete before you turn it in, and you will get a grade on this. And I promise you, if it's not completed, you're not going to get full credit for it. Alright, so keep that in mind. Be on your best behavior, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.